All right, so you want to know more about the nature of insight, how it happens, how it's different from just thinking, and how it can lead to real change.
Whoa.
We're in the right place for that.
Yeah.
Today, we are going deep into a 1975 conversation between J. Krishnamurti, the philosopher,
Right.
and David Bohm, the physicist.
A fascinating pairing.
And they're also joined by Dr. Parchure, who
Yeah.
sometimes adds to the conversation.
Yeah, it is interesting to have these very different perspectives. You have a spiritual teacher who was known for challenging conventional thinking, a leading quantum physicist,
Yeah.
and then a thoughtful commentator. And right away, they jump into like the very essence of thought, which is interesting.
Right. And they don't just take it for granted as, oh, it's that voice in our head.
Yeah.
They unpack it. They really question, is there more to thought
Right.
than just the words and the pictures that go through our mind?
Exactly. So Krishnamurti and Bohm, they distinguish between verbal thought, which is all about associations and memories,
Okay.
and a potential nonverbal thinking that might come from insight. So that raises a key question for our deep dive here.
Okay.
Where does insight actually come from? Is it just a product of logic?
Right.
Or is there something more going on?
Krishnamurti seems to really believe that insight is separate from mental images and verbal processes that we usually associate with thinking.
Yeah.
He even challenges the idea that imagination leads to insight.
Yeah, it's almost as if he's suggesting that insight comes from a different place altogether.
Wow.
A place beyond words and concepts.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Krishnamurti uses this really powerful example from his own life
Okay.
to illustrate this difference between acting from insight and acting from reasoned thought.
I see.
He talks about dissolving the Order of the Star, an organization he had founded.
Okay, yeah. And what's striking is how he disbanded it based on an insight that he had.
Exactly.
And he emphasizes the immediacy of it and the completeness of that action.
Yeah.
And contrasts it with the often incomplete actions that we take when we try to solve problems just through analysis and reasoning.
This brings us to a central challenge. How do we break free from our deep conditioning? Because after all, our thought patterns are shaped by years of cultural and personal experiences.
Right.
And it makes it so hard to see things with fresh eyes.
For sure.
Krishnamurti uses the analogy of a settled disposition to describe this rigidity of thought.
So if our minds are full of these preconceived notions and habitual patterns,
Right.
how do we perceive things as they are?
That is the question.
Yeah.
Well, Krishnamurti and Bohm explore a profound concept. The observer is the observed. It's like a fundamental shift in perspective that could change our whole understanding of reality.
Wow.
To illustrate this,
Okay.
Krishnamurti talks about how he came to perceive the falseness of the belief in God.
Okay.
Now, he's careful to clarify that he's not taking a stance on God's existence or non-existence.
Right.
What he's highlighting is how, through insight, he sought his belief.
As a projection of his own desires and mental images.
It's like he suddenly saw through an illusion or something.
Exactly. And this wasn't a result of careful thought or analysis.
Right.
He describes it as a direct perception of truth
Wow.
that just dissolved the illusion.
It's almost like he's talking about a different way of knowing,
Yes.
a way of seeing that transcends the limits of our conceptual minds.
This is where the concept of emptiness or nothingness comes in. And it's not about being blank-minded or ignorant,
Right.
but a state of mind that's free from the constant chatter of thoughts.
Okay.
Bohm actually connects this idea of emptiness to the English word leisure,
Interesting.
suggesting a space of true freedom and openness.
So imagine, like, your mind is a house filled with furniture.
Okay.
All of your beliefs, fears, desires, memories.
Yeah.
Emptiness in this sense is about emptying that house.
Right.
So that it's no longer just reflecting the world outside,
Yeah.
but a space where something new, something true can emerge. But then comes a really tricky question. If truth lies in this emptiness, how do we even begin to communicate it?
Right.
How do we share these profound insights with others, especially when they challenge our conventional ways of seeing the world?
Yeah. Krishnamurti and Bohm acknowledge how difficult that is.
Yeah.
Words can only point towards the truth.
Yeah.
They can't fully capture his essence.
It's like trying to explain the taste of chocolate
Yeah.
to someone who's never experienced it.
Right.
You can use all the words you want, but they won't truly get it until they taste it.
Exactly. Yeah. Even the most eloquent explanation might not give someone that experience of insight.
Right.
So how do we move from a thought process dominated by conditioning
Right.
to one that reflects true insight? That seems to be the central paradox that they're exploring.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this conversation so fascinating.
Absolutely.
They're wrestling with these really fundamental questions about the nature of reality,
Yeah.
the nature of thought, and ultimately the nature of who we are.
It's a deep dive for sure.
What strikes me about this conversation is how Krishnamurti continually brings it back to practical matters. He's not just interested in these abstract philosophical ideas. He wants to know how do these profound insights, like the realization of emptiness,
Right.
how do they affect the way we actually live our lives?
Yeah, he uses this analogy of a house
Right.
to describe our minds.
Yeah.
And how we fill it up with the furniture of reality.
Yes.
All the beliefs, fears, desires, and experiences we accumulate throughout our lives.
Right, and he poses a thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
How do we empty this house, this mind,
Yeah.
so that it becomes a space where truth can actually manifest?
It makes me think about the question of energy. Like, what kind of energy
Yes.
does a different quality of action arise
Exactly.
from that state of emptiness?
Yes.
It's not the energy of struggle or conflict or ambition,
Right.
but an energy that flows naturally from the perception of truth.
And he contrasts this with the energy we expend when we're trying to secure ourselves in the world,
Right.
which is often fueled by fear and a sense of incompleteness.
It's like we're constantly trying to fill some void
Yes.
with external things.
Exactly. And Krishnamurti makes this powerful statement. In nothingness, there is complete security. And he challenges Bohm. Help me understand this. How do I break down the conditioning that keeps me trapped in the illusion of a separate self?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do we tap into that inner security that doesn't depend on outside things?
Well, Bohm acknowledges how difficult this is. He notes that people might have glimpses of this truth, the sense of inner security, but they often fade as life pulls us back in.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah, those moments of clarity, of feeling connected to something larger.
Yeah,
But then we get pulled back into the demands of daily life.
absolutely.
But Krishnamurti keeps pressing.
Yeah.
He wants to know how to cultivate that state of emptiness and make it an enduring reality, not just a fleeting experience.
Right.
And Bohm, in response,
Yeah.
suggests shifting our focus from information to influence.
Okay.
He observes that we're constantly bombarded with information from the world around us, but it doesn't necessarily affect us deeply.
Yeah.
It's our conditioning, those deep-seated beliefs and habits
Right.
that truly shape our experience.
So it all comes back to this idea of the observer being the observed.
Yes. As long as we identify ourselves as separate from the world, as thinkers separate from our thoughts,
Right.
we remain trapped in the cycle of conditioning and reaction.
Yeah.
But when we see that the thinker is the thought,
Yeah.
the observer is the observed,
Wow.
that whole dynamic shifts.
It's like the ground of our being dissolves.
Yeah.
And we're left with this vast open space of awareness.
Exactly.
And from that space, a different kind of action becomes possible.
Yes, an action not driven by fear or desire,
Right.
but by a deep understanding of interconnectedness.
Krishnamurti gives a really compelling example, working without fear.
Yes.
He describes how when we're inwardly secure, our actions are no longer motivated by self-preservation or personal gain.
Right.
We're free to act from a place of intelligence,
Yes.
compassion, genuine concern for everyone's well-being.
And he even suggests that this inner security
Yeah.
can lead to outward security. That by transforming ourselves, we can contribute to a more just and peaceful world.
Yeah, you might be thinking, if this nothingness is so powerful,
Right.
why isn't it more evident in the world?
Yeah.
Why do we still see so much suffering and conflict?
Well, Krishnamurti and Bohm grapple with this question too. They acknowledge how challenging it is to communicate this truth,
Right.
to convey the depth and beauty of this insight.
Words can only point towards it.
Yeah.
They can't fully capture the essence.
It's like trying to describe the taste of an apple to someone who's never had one.
Yeah.
They may understand the concept, but they won't truly know until they experience it directly.
That's what makes this conversation so valuable.
Yes.
It doesn't offer easy answers.
Right.
Or a step-by-step guide to enlightenment.
Exactly.
Instead, it invites us to inquire, to question,
Yes.
to explore the nature of our own minds and the fabric of reality.
It's about recognizing that the key to transformation
Yeah.
doesn't lie in accumulating more knowledge
Right.
or following a prescribed path.
Right.
It lies in cultivating a state of openness,
Yeah.
receptivity, and a willingness to let go of the conditioning that prevents us from seeing the truth that's right in front of us.
It's about seeing the world with fresh eyes, unburdened by the weight of our past experiences and preconceived notions.
Exactly. And perhaps in that seeing,
Yeah.
in that moment of clear perception,
Uh-huh.
we might find the key to unlocking the transformative power of insight.
So we were talking about the idea of Maitreya, this figure who embodies compassion and the potential for collective awakening.
Yeah, there's this belief that Maitreya is kind of waiting, observing, ready to help humanity break free from suffering.
It kind of raises the question, is there a shortcut to enlightenment?
Right.
If Maitreya can't just snap his fingers and enlighten us all,
Yeah.
where does that leave us?
It's a big question.
Yeah, and Krishnamurti seems to be wrestling with this,
Yeah.
recognizing the weight of our conditioning. How society, our education, our families even, can keep us tethered to a world of illusion.
It's like we're surrounded by this chorus of voices,
Right.
all reinforcing the same limited perspective.
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming at times,
For sure.
like swimming against the current.
Yeah, but even amidst that seeming impasse,
Yeah.
there's this glimmer of possibility.
Okay.
Bohm suggests that the key might lie in communicating the intensity of insight,
Okay.
not through forceful arguments or elaborate systems, but through a direct transmission of the energy, the aliveness that comes from that place of emptiness. It's a powerful image, like a spark jumping across a gap, igniting something within the listener.
Yeah, but as Bohm points out,
Yeah.
it also depends on the receptivity of the listener.
Right.
Just like you need a working radio to receive a signal, you need a certain openness, a willingness to let go of preconceived notions to truly receive that transmission of insight.
Krishnamurti offers this beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
He talks about a drum vibrating from the emptiness within. So the skin of the drum represents the world of thought, action, reality, the world as we experience it.
Right, yeah.
And the emptiness within is the source of the vibration, the energy that animates the whole thing.
It's a beautiful image.
And he asks this profound question.
Yeah.
Is reality nothingness? He says, I mean truth nothingness.
And Bohm replies, yes, because if it's not reality, it must be no thing.
It sounds paradoxical.
Right.
But if truth is something fixed, something defined by our limited thoughts and concepts, then can it really be true?
That's the question. True reality, true freedom lies in that boundless space of nothingness.
It's a challenging idea,
It is.
but one worth pondering.
So after this deep dive, what can we take away from all this?
Well, we've explored how insight, that flash of understanding that cuts through conditioned thinking,
Yeah.
can be a transformative force.
For sure.
But it's not about following a set path or acquiring more knowledge.
Right.
It's about cultivating an inner space of openness and receptivity,
Yeah.
where those flashes of insight can occur naturally.
Krishnamurti in Bohm's conversation offers so many ideas and perspectives.
It really does.
And it's not about giving you all the answers,
Right.
but about inviting you to explore these questions, these insights for yourself.
Exactly.
And maybe in that exploration, you'll discover your own unique path
Yes.
to understanding the nature of insight and its transformative potential.
It's a journey worth taking.
This deep dive, we hope, has given you a new lens to view your own journey.